The Middle East Institute at Georgia State University presents Arabic Grammar Unpacked. In this lesson, we will be discussing what Arabs call waznu fa'ala and what European and American scholars call Form 2 verbs. If you have followed along with the previous videos, you will know how to conjugate verbs in the past and present tense. We can do a simple sentence such as Darastu al-lughat al-arabiyya, I studied Arabic. But sometimes we could take a verb like darasa, to study, and we can double the second consonant. We put the shadda on top of the letter ra here, and now it's pronounced darastu al-lugha al-arabiyya. This completely changes the meaning of the sentence simply by doubling the middle consonant. This is what Form 2 verbs are all about. We have changed the meaning of the sentence from I studied the Arabic language to I taught the Arabic language. One of the major effects of taking a root verb and changing it to Form 2 by doubling the middle consonant is to change the meaning of the verb so that you're making someone else do that thing. Another example might be in the present tense. Adrusu fi hadhihi al-jamia. I study in this university, or I am studying in this university. We can double the middle consonant, pronounce the other syllables a little bit differently, and say udarrisu fi hadhihi al-jamia. And now we have made the verb to teach. It now says I teach at this university. If we look back at our basic verb pattern, we remember that we need to learn 3 things in order to learn all 5 parts of a verb, such as darasa. We need to learn the vowel on the middle consonant in the past tense, which here is fatha. We need to learn the vowel on the middle consonant in the present tense, which is dhamma here. We need to learn the form of its masdar. It's ad-dirasa, not ad-durus or ad-dars or something like that. From there, we can derive the remaining 2 parts of the verb. The active participle, the daris, the studier, and the passive participle, the madrus, the thing that has been studied. So for simple verbs, we have these 5 parts. The past or perfect tense, we need to learn its middle vowel. The mudari or imperfect tense, we need to learn its middle vowel, which is dhamma here. The masdar or verbal noun or gerund, we need to learn its form. And from there we can derive the active participle or doer or ism fa'il and the ism maf'ul or passive participle or done to. Now, if we double the middle consonant, put shadda over the ra here, we make the verb simultaneously different and also quite a bit easier to learn. Because if we change over, we say darrasa, and that's all we need to know to derive the other 4 forms of the verb. Once we have its 3 root letters and the fact that we have shadda over the middle consonant, all of the others will fall into place in a very predictable pattern. It's always yudarrisu. Note that when we write shadda and kasra, we write the kasra under the shadda instead of under the letter like we normally would. It's always dhamma on the first syllable, fatha on the second syllable, shadda and kasra on the third, and then the little dhamma at the end. The masdar or verbal noun will always have the same pattern, tadris. We have a ta with a fatha, the first root letter with sukun, the second root letter, the long vowel ya, and then the third root letter. The ism fa'il always takes this form, mim with a dhamma, letter number 1 with fatha, letter number 2 with shadda and kasra, letter number 3, mudarris. A mudarris is a teacher. And finally, we have the passive participle, the ism maf'ul, which in an unvoweled text will look exactly like the active participle and sometimes confuse you. Thoughtful writers usually include the shadda and the kasra or fatha to make it clear which one they mean. We have mim with dhamma again, first letter with fatha, second letter with shadda and fatha this time, and then the third letter. So all you need to know is that the verb is darrasa, to teach, and you automatically know it's yudarrisu and at-tadris and mudarris and mudarras. It's very easy to learn Form 2 verbs because you don't have to learn the things you have to learn for Form 1 verbs. Form 2 verbs are much more regular. So in Arabic grammar, as Arabs will learn when they're at school, they learn the patterns using the dummy consonants, fa, ayn, and lem. Fa, ayn, lem, yani to do. So here we have fa'ala, yufa'ilu, at-taf'il, mufa'il, and mufa'al. And then all you need to do is substitute in your verbs 3 root letters for the fa, ayn, and lem, and you'll have an easy time learning these. In fact, in Arabic, the name for this pattern isn't Form 2 at all. The Roman numeral system is a European invention, and many Arabs who have never left their home countries will be completely baffled if you start asking them about Form 2. They won't understand you. Instead, they use the phrase waznu fa'ala, the fa'ala pattern. And this is how a native speaker would learn these verbs. If we look at their conjugation, it's very simple. It's exactly the same as a Form 1 verb, a regular verb, except in this case you're doubling the middle consonant. So instead of darastu, we say darastu, darasta, darasti. It's exactly the same pattern, except you don't have to learn the middle vowel because it's always fatha, and there is always shadda over the middle consonant. It's going to use the exact same set of suffixes that every other regular verb uses in the past tense. All you have to do is double the middle consonant. For the present tense, it's a little bit more difficult because you have some more syllables you have to learn, but it obeys the same pattern always. So once you learn the pattern once, you won't have a problem with it. I say udarris. Notice that I use dhamma on the first syllable instead of fatha like we usually do with regular Form 1 verbs. Tudarris. It's got one extra syllable, not tedros, but tudarris. Tudarrisin, yudarris, tudarris, and so on and so forth, using the exact same set of prefixes and suffixes. The tricky part here being you've got an extra syllable because there's no sukun, and you're also using the dhamma instead of the fatha on the prefix. So they're easy to conjugate, you just have to learn a separate pattern. Once again, these verbs are very predictable. If you know darrasa, you don't even need the fathas because you're going to know there's 3 fathas there all the time. If it's darrasa, then it's yudarrisu, at-tadris, mudarris, mudarras. They're always regular. They're that easy to learn, much easier than root verbs are. Now let's take a look at what happens when we change a Form 1 verb to a Form 2 verb. There's 3 main things this change will do to its meaning. The first, and by far the most common of them, is making someone else do the action of that word. So I can start with a simple sentence with a Form 1 verb. Al-ustadhu dakhala al-maktab. The professor entered the office. Now I can take the verb dakhala, to enter, a regular Form 1 verb. I can double its middle consonant and change its meaning. And now we have the sentence, Al-ustadhu dakhala at-talaba fil maktab. The professor let the student into the office, made them enter the office. Another example would be, at-talibatu tadrusu al-kimya. The student is studying chemistry. If I change the middle consonant to a double consonant and change the vowels around it, I can change it to al-ustadatu tudarrisu al-kimya. The professor is teaching chemistry. Again, by doubling the middle consonant, most of the time what we do is take the meaning of the root verb and make somebody else perform that action, let them in, or make them learn. Another common change in meaning in Form 2 verbs is intensification. I can use a sentence such as yaqta'u at-tabihu al-lahm. The cook cuts the meat, where qata'a, to cut or slice something, or turn it off, is a simple regular Form 1 verb. But if I double its middle consonant and change the syllables around it accordingly, I can change the sentence to yuqatta'u at-tabikh al-lahm. Now he's chopping it, hacking it, chopping it into pieces, not just cutting it once, but cutting it up. I can take an example such as at-talibatu kasarat dhira'aha. The student broke her arm. Double its middle consonant, change the other syllables accordingly, and now she has shattered her arm. Kassara. We have intensified the meaning of break and turned it into shatter. So this is another common thing that Form 2 verbs do to their Form 1 counterparts. They intensify its meaning. And lastly, in classical texts and sometimes in literature, Arabic tends to use verbs where English would use an adjective. We can say al-qissatu taqsuru. The story is short, or too short, this would often imply. In modern Arabic, people will use an adjective instead. They'll say al-qissa qasira. But sometimes in these literary uses, you'll see verbs that are fundamentally used as adjectives. So qasura would mean something like to be or become short. But if we double its middle consonant, turn it into a Form 2 verb, we turn it into الطالبة تقصر القصة. The student is shortening the story. So you'll often see these verbs used as Form 2 verbs, fundamentally derived from adjectives, so you'll recognize them, qaf, sad, ra, from qasir. So now what we have done is we have made it shorter. The Form 1 verb, the root verb, is pretty uncommon in modern Arabic, but the Form 2 verb is quite common. And one final example, you could say something like Shuhratul Ustadi Kabura, the fame of the professor grew, kabir, it got bigger, of course because of these videos. But if we double the middle consonant and we change the syllables accordingly, we can say Ijtihadul Ustadi Kabura Shuhratuhu, the hard work of the professor made his fame grow, or magnified his fame, or enlarged his fame. So the root Form 1 verbs of these adjectival verbs are very rarely used in everyday conversation and modern discourse, but you'll see their Form 2 counterparts all the time. So keep in mind that all you need to do is double the middle consonant. You do one of three things to that verb. Usually you have to look it up to find out which one if it's not clear from context. You either make someone else do the root meaning of that verb, you intensify the root meaning of that verb, or you take an adjective and apply it to that verb. And those are Form 2 verbs. They're not difficult to learn. There are many of them, and learning the basic and most common ones can greatly increase your vocabulary and range of expression.